They call it a relic of the past, a silent stone shaped by time. But beneath the surface, something is waking up, a pulse that science cannot explain, because this is not a natural formation. Pompeii. In the local tongue, the name carries a weight far heavier than its 3 syllables suggest. Upon a stone altar, it is a title that transforms an entire island into a sacrificial platform floating in the crushing isolation of the Western Pacific. To the casual observer, this is a tropical paradise, a crown of emerald green on a sapphire sea. But on its eastern fringe, where the jungle meets the dark, relentless tide of the coral reef, lies a silent testimony to a logistical nightmare. 92 artificial islets, 750,000 metric tons of volcanic glass, stacked with a clinical precision that makes modern engineering flinch. We are standing at the gates of Nan Madol. Mainstream history offers us a comfortable narrative, a story designed to fit within the neatly labeled boxes of 1100 AD. They tell us of the Sodeleur dynasty, a line of foreign tyrants who commanded a primitive labor force to raft these stones across the mangroves. They speak of hibiscus bark ropes and wooden levers. They speak of hundreds of years of back-breaking toil. But when we strip away the myth and apply the cold, unyielding laws of physics, the story begins to bleed. We are not looking at a city built by men. We are looking at a lithic anomaly that defies the very demographics of the Pacific. We are looking at an altar, and we are starting to realize that we are the ones being observed. The silence here is not the silence of peace. It is the silence of an empty machine. Every basalt pillar, every hexagonal prism was placed with a purpose that transcends simple shelter. The sheer volume of material is staggering. Imagine the logistics of moving 750,000 tons of stone onto a coral reef, not on solid ground, but onto a tidal flat where the water is constantly shifting, where the mud is deep, and where a single mistake means the loss of a multi-ton asset. The Sodeleur were not just kings. If the mainstream narrative is true, they were the greatest logistical geniuses in human history. Or perhaps they weren't using ropes at all. To understand the scale of the deception, one must first understand the material. These are not carved blocks. These are naturally formed basaltic prisms, columnar jointing created by the rapid cooling of ancient volcanic flows. But there is a fundamental problem. Lithic sourcing, the chemical fingerprinting of the stone, confirms that these prisms were not found on this side of the island. They were extracted from the Temwen lava flows miles away across treacherous terrain and mangrove swamps. The basalt here has a density of approximately 3,000 kilograms per cubic meter. It is heavy, jagged, and unforgiving. The cornerstones at the Royal Mortuary of Nandawas weigh upwards of 60 metric tons, a single block. Now, calculate the logistics to move a 60-ton prism across a jagged coral reef, through thick mangrove swamps, without the wheel, without iron, and without the pulley. Modern engineering experiments with 300 men have failed to move stones half this size over similar terrain. Furthermore, the regional population during the height of the Sodeleur dynasty is estimated at fewer than 30,000 people. When you subtract the elderly, the children, and the massive labor force required for food production in a tropical environment, the available workforce shrinks to a fraction. The caloric expenditure required to transport 750,000 tons of basalt is a statistical impossibility. There are no drag marks on the seabed, no shattered pillars in the channels. The stones were not dragged, they were positioned with a zero-gap precision that suggests a technology history has chosen to forget, or perhaps a technology that wasn't ours to begin with. Some legends say the stones flew, others say they were walked into place by giants. In the cold light of engineering, those legends begin to sound more plausible than the official hibiscus rope theory. But the true horror of Nan Madol is not what stands above the water. It is what lies beneath the silt. At the Dawa Paidak Islet, stratigraphic excavations revealed a truth that mainstream archaeology struggles to categorize. Buried deep beneath the primary basalt foundations are layers of water-rolled pottery shards, shell ornaments, and faunal remains. This is the ghost stratigraphy of Pohnpei. It confirms a pre-megalithic occupation, a culture that lived here on pilings over the reef flat, long before the first basalt pillar was ever stacked. This means the Saudeleur did not build on an empty reef. They built over the remains of an older, unknown civilization. They erased what came before to pave the way for their megalithic obsession. Who were the before people? Why was their pottery crushed under 50 tons of volcanic stone? The deeper we dig, the more Nan Madol looks less like a city and more like a lid, a stone seal placed over a past that someone wanted to stay buried. Every islet is a weight, every basalt column is a lock. We are standing on a tomb built on a graveyard in the middle of a rising ocean, and the seals are starting to fail. What happened to that earlier culture? Did they flee when the megaliths began to arrive, or were they used as the literal foundation for this stone nightmare? The presence of water-rolled pottery suggests they were intimately connected to the sea, perhaps a maritime people who understood the reefs better than we ever will. Their erasure is absolute. Their names are gone. Only their trash remains, compressed by the weight of a dynasty that claimed the islands as their own altar. Geophysical data is now providing the final, chilling chapter to this story. Airborne LiDAR digital terrain models have mapped the vulnerability of these islands with terrifying accuracy. Nan Madol is sinking at a mere 1.4 meters above mean sea level. The landward islets are already being reclaimed by the Pacific. While mainstream science speaks of tidal inundation and environmental damage, the isostatic shift tells a darker tale. As the ocean rises, the evidence of the lowest foundations, those that sit in the crushing dark of the coral shelf, slips further into the abyss. There are reports of massive walls continuing deep underwater, far below the levels where humans can breathe without assistance. Is it possible that the lowest levels of Nan Madol were built when the sea level was drastically lower? If so, the age of this site doesn't count in centuries, but in millennia. We are looking at a relic of a lost epoch, a time when the geography of the Pacific was unrecognizable to modern eyes. We are in a race against time. The ocean is erasing the fingerprints of a technology we still do not understand. The Pacific is not just rising, it is taking back what it once lent to the architects of the abyss. The implications of a much older Nan Madol are devastating to our understanding of human migration. If these foundations were laid 10,000 years ago, it suggests a global civilization with engineering capabilities that rival our own. It suggests that Nan Madol is not an isolated incident, but a node in a much larger global network of megalithic structures, a network that is now largely submerged, hidden by the very oceans that once connected it. As the sun sets over the basalt walls of Nandawas, the air grows thick with a heavy, oppressive silence. Local legends speak of lights moving beneath the water and compasses that spin aimlessly in the central courtyards. while the formal geophysical record remains curiously silent on magnetic variances. Those who walk these stones feel the pulse. Nan Madol was never meant for the living. It is a machine of stone, a lithic circuit board designed to anchor something to this earth, or perhaps to keep something from leaving it. As the tide comes in and the salt water begins to swirl around the hexagonal pillars, one is left with a final haunting question. If we are the ones who found this city, who are the ones who left it? And what happens to the world when the stones finally sink beneath the waves for the last time? Pompeii, the altar is waiting, and the ocean is hungry. You've been listening to the case files of the forgotten. Sleep well. If the tide allows, the lights of the modern world feel far away here. Under the shadow of 60-ton cornerstones, our technology feels fragile. Our history feels like a thin veneer, a story we tell ourselves to avoid looking at the abyss. Nan Madol is not just a place. It is a warning. It is a reminder that civilizations rise and fall, but the stones remain. And the stones, they never forget their original purpose. The Pacific continues its slow, inevitable ascent. One by one, the islets will vanish. The pottery shards of the before people will be joined by the artifacts of our own time. And in another 10,000 years, perhaps another civilization will stand on a new reef, looking down into the blue dark, wondering who built the walls they can no longer reach. The cycle of the altar continues. While the records of Nan Madol suggest the impossible, the truth hidden within the depths of our national parks may be far darker. The evidence is waiting. I'll see you in the next case file.